Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are in a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com.
Hello and welcome to Grilling JR. This is Paul Bromwell filling in for Conrad Thompson this week, and I'm joined by the voice of wrestling, Mr. Jim Ross. JR, how are you this week?
I'm good, man. I'm having a good week. It's been a good week so far, and I did a little travel, not bad. Good places. After we do this, I'm on my way to Oklahoma City to go to the OU Texas Tech game this Saturday. And so I'm kind of excited about that. Seeing my house that, I lived in forever. I haven't been back too often. So, I send my buddies around. If the weather's nice, we'll sit outside in the back. Got a patio in the backyard, a covered kitchen, outdoor kitchen, big screen TV, big 50-incher, and it's perfect for cigar smoking. I don't smoke cigars, but my buddies do. But I do drink the beer. I got me an OU Coke machine out there, so I'm set. I'm ready to go. So I'm anxious to get home and see everybody, including my family. And so things are good. My youngest daughter and her husband and I are and another guy, a lawyer, especially in the field, are getting ready to start a cannabis farm. And we're looking at the working title of Black Hat Farms. I bought some land in Oklahoma recently, and for the grow houses and all the things. But they're going to be their life. It's a big deal. She's got a great job in marketing. She's not going to quit that. I wouldn't even let her consider that. So I'm excited about that for my kids. I figured out it was probably smarter to leave them things while I was alive than sort through all the heartbreak and the minutia and the legal stuff, the probate courts and all these things after I was gone. It's going to be hard enough on them after I'm gone, simply because I got so much memorabilia. I need a clever, creative way to have somebody that knows what the hell they're doing, come to my home, inventory my memorabilia, and then figure out the best way to pare it down, And so I got some cool stuff, and it's hard to give it up to, quite frankly. But it's just so much. It's a whole room full of stuff. It's just stacked everywhere. It looks like I'm a hoarder. And my wife kind of was a hoarder, so she collected memorabilia for years. Every year I get something for my birthday or Christmas from John Wayne item or Mickey Mantle item. So I got tons of John Wayne stuff, signed, worn. His cigarette lighter, all kinds of cool shit. So I have fun going back out there. There's a lot of good memories. So, but we'll have fun tonight here on this with this. I like these Q&As, kind of fun, It just a matter what the folks put in their questions.
Yeah.
You're going to ask a wise ass question, or how come so and so didn't get the belt? I don't know, pal. What does your extensive booking acronym say it should be? So if you're not going to try to if it's just not a soapbox deal, it's just normal conversation. I love these.
But
that's what we're trying to make it tonight.
JR, listen, if you get wise ass questions, we want red ass answers. Can you promise me that?
We can work on it.
Okay, that's what I want. That's what we want
All right.
from you. Listen, you said Black Hat Farms. That was the name of it, where you serving chocolate cake. Is that the slogan? Is that what we're going to do?
Oh, no. Chocolate cake. There'll be chocolate cake eventually out of it, but somebody. But I think I really am grateful and proud of my kids for taking on such a big project.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's a big project.
That's very cool.
It's the most I've ever invested in anything in my life, homes included. So it felt right. I have a circle of friends that are accountants and lawyers and financial planners. Everybody got to see the business plan. So
They're all in on it.
Real positive feedback. So we're doing it the right way, I think. But it's a big, heavy dose of cash to get it started.
Well, Jim, you talked about it, having everybody over on the deck there, firing up the grill, the 50-inch TV. That sounds a lot of fun. What's the go-to? What are you going to throw on that grill? What's the meat of choice, you think, for a party like that?
Probably steaks.
Okay.
Yeah, steaks, fillets, healthier, I like fillets. They're more tender as a rule. I love ribeyes. So they're always in the hunt. But steaks probably the main thing.
Little JR seasoning.
Yeah, oh hell yeah. This makes it easy. It's like stealing. I mean, you ain't got to be an expert. You can turn your grill on and put the meat on it at the right temp, and all you do is cover it in our seasoning. You're home. You're done. So that's kind of how I look at that whole thing. Guys like me who are amateur cookers just like to do it for, I don't know if it's therapeutic or what. But I really enjoy grilling and cooking for myself and guests from time to time. I just find it to be a fun thing to do, and I want to do it as pain-free as I can. I want to, and I generally will season with our JR seasoning on those steaks. If at all possible, let them sit all day or overnight, and they're infinitely better. That's not no wise tale. That's the real stuff, and that anybody can do that. All of a sudden, you got your grill on. Your meat's been sitting there for overnight. It's been seasoned, marinating, so to speak. If you want to add a little bit of liquid smoke on there, have at it. So it's really easy, and I keep it easy. My buddies are more interested in drinking, and that Coke machine, that OU Coke machine, doesn't have any Cokes in it. It's got a few bottles of water and a bunch of beer.
Yeah, it's pushing out the good stuff.
Yeah, Mick Ultra.
Right. Well,
and I'm not saying it's the best beer. I'm just saying it's what I have in my freezer, my refrigerator thing right now. The best beer is free and cold.
There you go. Free, cold, and with a steak.
Yep. There you go.
All right, JR. Well, listen, this week, your red ass is on the hot seat answering fan questions. Are you ready to do this? Let's get into it.
Yeah, let's roll.
All right, man. First one comes to us from Instagram, a wrestling historian. He said, JR, what was it like having a restaurant?
Well, I loved it. I loved having a restaurant. I had two of them. At the end of the day, one restaurant we shut down came out whole because we flipped it to a sports bar. And that is still there, still doing well. I don't own it. The one in Norman that was on I-35, on both sides of my restaurant were the two main drags in town. Well, the state highway department closed both the exits. So to get to my restaurant, you would take the main street exit off I-35, but it was locked. There was no exit. So you either had to go down a mile and come back, or turn a mile early and come down. It killed it. It just absolutely destroyed the bit, because it was, we live in a world of convenience.
That's right.
And that was not convenient. So, but I loved it. I loved going over there and walking around and shooting the shit at the tables with everybody. And I had great memorabilia in there. It was really, decor was cool. And there's always stories to tell. you take a few photos and sign some stuff, and they leave with a happy experience. And we were doing well, but I would like to have gotten it on really rolling, and then worked out a franchise package. We could franchise them, but it never came to that. So, but anyway, it was fun. Again, lost a few dollars, didn't lose so much sleep over it, but I really had a lot of fun. It was a kind of a dream. I still would like to have a bar, but I don't know how I'm going to work that into my schedule. I need about 2 more days in a week.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Jared Miller's up next, and he's digging right in for the wrestling questions. I've often heard that one of the reasons we never got Austin versus Hogan at WrestleMania was that Austin didn't believe Hogan would do business and put him over, along with just a general clash in styles. So why do you think Hogan was so willing to put Rock over, but not Austin, or was he?
Well, I don't know that Hogan was not willing to put Austin over whatsoever. I was never involved, and I would have been, I think, in those conversations. Steve did not want to work with Hogan because he thought their styles were so 180. He was worried about having the chemistry for the match to live up to the hype, because you got to understand the hype is going to be intense. Stone Cold versus Hulk. People were expecting a classic, and Steve wasn't sure he could deliver a classic, because Hogan was all beat up, not knocking Hulk. He's all those back surgeries and stuff. So that was the reason. It had nothing to do with Hogan not wanting to do business.
Okay. So it was more so the clash in styles and how to even make that work type thing.
Yeah, he didn't have confidence. Steve didn't have confidence that the match would pay off.
Right.
Simple as that. And I can't say I disagree with it, because Hulk was in bad shape and was having a hard time taking bumps. He was doing it, taking flatbacks on a limited basis. And of course, he had great psychology and all those things. We saw that with Rock. So it was just and maybe Steve saw the match with the Rock and said, maybe that we got we can't put the lightning back in the bottle or something. I don't know.
Very true.
I don't know.
Well, and by the way, JR, we have 21 pages of questions for you. I don't know that we're going to get to all of them, but we're going to do our best. I'll try to keep a good pace here for you. Adam Arpin is up next, and he says, did Gerald Brisco or anyone else ever discuss bringing in Jack Brisco to work alongside Gerald and Pat during the feud with the Mean Street Posse?
No, not at all. It never was considered. When Jack left the Newark airport, I was headed back to Florida, and he said he was done. He was done. So no, that was never any dialogue along those lines.
All right, there it is. Nice and simple. Nothing at all. Michael Eldridge, my buddy's up next, and he says, how different does JR see Austin's WWF/E career had the Owen Hart tombstone injury not occurred?
Well, he would have been more physically able to do things. His body would have been in better shape, as far as not having that apprehension. I'm going to re-injure my neck, and then I'm going to be confined to a wheelchair. That's a big consequence to have a wrestling match. So he had to be careful. So, but as far as success, the only thing that I thought hurt Steve was turning heel. I didn't see the reason for it, but nonetheless, it happened, and it was years ago. But I don't know how much. I don't think it would have changed that significantly. Only from the comfort level and what Steve would still do in the matches. So that's all I think. I think he still had a hell of a run.
Sure. All right, JJ Arwood's back, and he has a question here. He said, did Vince McMahon ever get a chance to try some of good old JR's barbecue sauce? And if so, what did he think of it?
Well, he did, and he was complimentary regarding it. The one that really liked it was Linda, because she's a North Carolina girl, Mrs. McMahon. She liked it, and I think she's especially fond of our mustard, the jalapeno honey mustard. So I know that's Vince's favorite condiment is mustard. I don't know if it's my mustard or somebody else's, but he likes mustard. But yeah, they tried it, and they were, like you said, very supportive.
Good. All right. Michael McClanahan is up next. He said, I love when JR talks about the business side of wrestling. So if you don't mind sharing, who were some of the wrestlers that were very in tune to the payoff structure And who would want to learn how discretionary pay was determined? Do you remember any memorable conversations around this topic?
Well, you always have memorable conversations about money, especially in a business where a lot of guys don't manage their funds real intelligently, and they eliminate things they should be doing, like paying their quarterly taxes. Rock was always interested. I'll put it this way: most of the top guys would ask what the house was, or because they would, in their mind, they had their own little formula and their own personal computer to process that information, and then give themselves what they perceive to be a somewhat accurate estimation. But the top guys are more interested in it. The guys in the bottom of the card, the middle of the card, they were more concerned about, keeping their bills paid and getting their income up. So, but if you're the smart in that era, the smart guys, the ones that were paying attention, were asking questions, and they were trying to get ahead of the curve on how much they're going to make. And that was only because some of those guys weren't doing it because they were broke. They were just concerned about the accounting. And am I getting a fair shake? You guys get the first count, blah, blah, blah. All the same old wrestle speak. That, discretionary is another thing. It's just very challenging to explain. It was discretionary. It's discretionary within some guidelines. You always have a percentage of your net gross goes to talent. And I remember I worked in different scenarios. I've been where it was 35% of that, 30% of that. I didn't create that. That was an accounting thing. And so when I get my sheets with everybody on the card and all that stuff, then it would say on there how much money I had in my talent pool for that event. And then it would be my discretion to break those monies up and to what I thought was fair to the card. So that's kind of how that worked. But everybody should be interested. And for more reasons than that, am I getting screwed? Oh, I got cut. That was just I got a shiv in my back. I think.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I can't believe this is real, but we not only got a handicapper, but we got the best ever. How are you so good at handicapping these games? I mean, 4-0, that's quite a streak already.
Well, let's talk about every pick I've given this year in the NFL as an example. 23-8. Every pick I've given this year. 4 weeks in the bag, 23-8. There's nobody in the country that can match what I do, but I always make sure, because anybody, Conrad, could make up anything. They could tell you and blow smoke and tell you, oh, I'm the greatest. But I am independently monitored and documented, so nobody could ever question what I say and go, I don't believe it. I send every pick to an independent monitoring and documentation service that has to get the pick before the game goes off and then publishes it after the game goes off so anybody can see what I gave. But this is the best start I've ever had. I've never been this good to start a season. You don't win every week, 4 weeks in a row, everything you put out. It's been the kind of year I've had. So get on a hot streak, because when a guy's on a hot streak like me, you want to ride it. I've always had a talent for picking winners. Never quite as hot as I am right now, but I've always been very good at it. And I think it's because I do more homework than anybody else. The average guy or gal watching this podcast, they don't have time. They have a career. They have jobs. They might read the newspaper or go online and see something, but they don't have time 80 hours a week to study the games. That's what I do. And I have a crew of guys behind me, my consultants, who every week we get together 3 times a week and they throw their ideas at me. I throw my ideas at them. And then I pick the final 5 plays on Saturday and Sunday in college and pro football. So, I've got a great team behind me too, but we're all doing together hundreds of hours of homework. So you don't have to. It's all at vegaswinners.com.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to vegaswinners.com right now. Let's win some money.
Steve Blackman said one time that I pencil fucked him.
Oh, man. With a number 2.
And I said, I guess you arrived at that conclusion, Steve, through all your years of forensic accounting and within the pro wrestling payroll structure.
Great.
As in never. So a lot of guys too, not speaking this for Steve, because I don't think he'd be one of those guys, these guys whatsoever, but some of them are just overspending. They were counting on that next check to catch them up on their Visa card or their MasterCard or whatever. So it was always an ongoing dialogue. When you add the element of discretionary income into their deal, then it can become controversial. So what I just try to do is be honest and fair, and had never had an issue sitting down with somebody and talking about it.
Outside of the pencil fucking that went on between you and Steve Blackman, is there any other kind of crazy story that just stands out in your mind? You don't have to drop a name, but just something about money and a wrestler that just absolutely blew your mind. It still stands out to you this day.
Well, there's just a lot of ignorance.
Yeah.
A lot of ignorance when it comes to that area of wrestling. You know, in those wrestling camps, those wrestling schools, I am under the impression, having never attended a class, that they teach them flat backs, how to protect themselves and their opponent, et cetera, fundamental skill sets. But I don't know if they teach them about saving money or how the payroll works in the old days. Now, see, that's changed so much. I don't know that anybody pays with discretionary income. Everybody's got a deal. You know what you're getting. So then it becomes a deal where you can't say, well, I got behind on my taxes because I didn't know what I was going to be making. You're on salary. And like our guys at AEW, you know, some of them work indie dates. I think that's good for them, actually. I wish more would do it because it helps their skill sets and refines their game. You can't get better working one day a week unless you're already there. I think that that's an area that doesn't get covered. I paid somebody for a WrestleMania and 6-figure payoff, and they're very happy. And then the next year at WrestleMania, they're on the card, but not in a match that even came close to equaling the hype of the previous year's match. So in other words, they went down the card.
Sure.
You go from a semi-main or a whatever to mid-card.
Yeah.
They were thinking because they'd already made 6 figures on the previous WrestleMania that it'd be 6 figures on this one too. And it wasn't. And I had a hell of a time trying to explain that. And here's what I came to. They were counting on that money to pay off debt. You know, it could be a Louis Vuitton bag or a Rolex or whatever the hell, some toy. I guarantee you it's probably something they didn't need. So, you know, the first thing I would have done is taken that money and I'd have gone to my accountant and I got my quarterly taxes paid. That's what I would have made sure that was done before I went shopping. So, but it's always been that way. Now that everybody's under a contract and they get a guaranteed sum, if you're bitching about your pay, then why did you agree to the terms?
Yeah, there's structure in place now.
Yeah. So, and I think that's good.
Yeah. All right. Lindsay is up next, and she says, JR, were commentators always smartened up to table spots?
No. You know, people know that the less I know, the better off I feel. I feel like I can do a good job of calling a match if I don't know too much intel. I've worked with announcers that needed to know everything, or at least they thought they did. I just leave the room or I'd walk away. I didn't want to know. I just felt like I do a better job for the show and for the fans if I was just as surprised or excited as I hope that they were. So sometimes they tell you, because it depends on how the bump's being taken, you got to be prepared to move or you get caught underneath your table with your legs. Boom, down it goes. So, so you do get word occasionally, and normally the word gets out. The talent just wants you to know what they're going to do, and they know. Most of them now know if there's a big finish I need to be aware of, I'm clued in. But only if it's because they're so nuanced that I might have missed something, or one of the other announcers may have missed something going into that finish 1, 2, 3. So no, it's better if you don't know. I don't know. Look at how would you think Sunday NFL football would be if everybody knew the finish?
Yeah,
it would
not be as exciting.
Nope, would not.
Just like our own reaction watching football, if we knew it was going to happen, we wouldn't react like we would to our sports teams when something crazy happens. So it makes total sense. And that's the same way. Is that the same way now? Obviously in AEW, when you and Tony and Excalibur, that's pretty much, what would you say, 95% reaction, to your point, only if you need to be clued in on something.
Excalibur will know more if you said the prioritize who knew the most. Excalibur probably will know the most about the matches. Shivani will know the most about some other matches, and I'll fill in the blanks.
Okay.
I mean, we're running the same offense. Get talent over, calling the action in a non-eye rolling way. So we're all got the same journey. We're all on the same journey. We just, some of us take different routes to get there. And I'm not saying my route is better than theirs whatsoever. Probably being old school like this and all these years in the business, other than mispronouncing a name every now and then, which people love to remind me of. That's so funny how that's become an issue. It's strange to me, and sometimes it's hurtful, because I'm thinking that this person. Now, here's what's hurtful, not in my feelings. This person must be so frigging lonely and so disengaged with normalcy that they take the time to say, JR called Brian Daniel Bryan or something like that. Really? We don't rehearse this shit. We don't have cue cards. It's all extemporaneous. You got a crowd in your ear. You got your announcers in your ear. You got your own voice in your headset. There's a lot of noise. And the days where shows are taped, you hear those faux pas because they were edited out. Live is live, baby. I love it. There's nothing more exhilarating than doing live TV, like we've been doing on TNT.
It would be funny if just halfway through you were like, you know what? I did call him Daniel Bryan. You know what? Fuck it. Daniel Bryan the rest of the night, just to piss everybody off, JR. Scroll.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Don't let them get to you, man.
No, well, they're not. Yeah. I feel badly for them.
It's unbelievable.
It's a difference in having that question or having like one of our previous questions that was more thought-provoking.
That's right. Charlie Thrower is up next, and he brings up a guy that I love to hear you talk about. Well, maybe not talk about, but talk like. Here we go. I'm fascinated by Jim Barnett and his impact on the wrestling business. Without getting granular, Mr. Ross, I love you for that. Charlie.
What does that mean? What means granular? That's that salt or something. Granulated? Oh, it's granulated.
I'll tell you. I'll explain it why. Granular is a word they use on Jeff Jarrett's podcast, because every answer Jeff Jarrett gives, he is in the weeds on it. It don't matter what the topic is. So the joke is, I don't mean to get granular here, Conrad, and then he does, and then he gets deep in the weeds on it. So that's where getting granular comes from.
Yeah, well.
So without getting granular, Mr. Ross, would you please take a moment to talk about Mr. Barnett?
Mr. Barnett was Mr. Barnett was a big part of my career. He's an Oklahoma City guy, went to Chicago University, extremely intelligent. Very gay, and I remember him telling me that they had a big alliance meeting, a wrestling meeting of all the heads of the families, like in a gangster movie or something, and they had it in Havana. This is before Castro took over.
Okay,
and his cohorts didn't know for sure if he was living an alternate lifestyle or not. And he was very protective of it. So one of the promoters there, it might have been a promoter there in Puerto Rico, I don't know. He got everybody a hooker. So all the promoters that were there from what I understand, partook, and that would include Mr. Barnett. He told me, told me this story. He said, "I only had sex with a woman one time. That was in Havana." Told me the story about Havana, and she gave me that, and she gave me the clap. So he's but he was he was a shrewd businessman, boy. He had the Indianapolis territory. He ran Australia, and that was a much sought after spot. From a lot of wrestlers wanted to make that tour, and work in Australia. The weather was good. There was beaches. He kept everybody in a hotel, nice hotel. I think they flew first class.
Wow.
So, and all their trips were by plane. So they had lessened their land travel, obviously. But he was a brilliant businessman. He was one of those. He's like a lot of the wrestlers. If he had $100,000 a week, he may spend 150 on jewelry and shoes. I remember one time I sent him to England to do some PR work, and he came back, and I had to prove his expense report, which was funny. So he had all these.
Get into it. Let's hear it.
He got into. He had a. What did he have? He had all these receipts. Boy, they're heavy, like $300 lunches, $500 lunches, all at Harrods. Harrods is that's the department store. They got food there. It's an awesome place to visit. You're in London. It's a big department store, but and much more. And so he comes back, and I said, "Jim, I need to talk to you about this expense report here." "Well, my God, what?" I said, "Well, it looks like you bought a bunch of neckties." "How could that be?" "Well, I don't know. Maybe you took them off the rack and you liked them." So I said, "Did you buy some ties?" "Well, yes." "Is that a crime?" "No." "But where's mine?" "I brought you a tie. I really did. It's in my desk." So he goes, gets me this, like, I don't know, $100 tie. I never even wore a $100 tie in my life. So I accepted his bribe. I signed his expense report here.
I love it.
But he was sad in ways. His the gays in that era were not accepted.
Oh yeah,
Their life was miserable.
Yep.
Secrets and hiding and all this subterfuge shit that they should never have had to put up with.
Right.
And so he seemed to be lonely a lot. And I don't mean in a sexual way. Just he liked to talk.
Sure.
He had great experiences. He knew a lot of stars. He did have an affair with Rock Hudson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I think he and Rock, as rumor has it, got friendly with Lee Majors.
Interesting.
So he's a captivating man. Somebody's missing the boat about doing a book or a movie. I thought, trying to think of the guy who's the guy that played Truman Capote? Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yes.
I thought he would be a great Jim Barnett. So, but he passed away. And
yeah, he's passed.
But I learned a lot about gay people and their sensitivities, and one of those lessons you learn on the road in any of your life. It just so happened that he was he wanted me to understand what he had gone through, and I had a lot more respect for him after that. And look, all this aside, he screwed us on the house. I did my check. I got screwed. I got pencil fucked.
That's fine. The line of the show so far.
Anyway, but I like Mr. Barnett. I was sad to see him pass away.
Yeah. He also was a fan of Cheeks, right?
Conrad's cheeks.
He would have loved Conrad's cheeks. Yeah.
They're huge, and they're so soft. They look like giant pillows in a king-size bed in a department store. They're big and they're fluffy. Oh, my God.
There it is. The oh, my God. Yes.
Connie.
All right, good
Him and
stuff.
Conrad would have got along great because they're both intellectuals. Seriously.
Yeah.
They'd have gotten along real well. People, I know what he's getting at. He's, I'm like, we ain't going down the back door here or nothing. I'm just saying they got a lot in common. They both love pro wrestling, and they're both very intelligent people.
Right. Could you imagine a conversation with Conrad and Jim Barnett? How fun
Great.
would that be?
That set down would have been rivaling anything he's done.
Yeah. Wow, what could have been? Well, no, thank you for sharing that. Always love hearing him. Love hearing your impersonations of Jim Barnett. So fun and so good. And you're helping carry his memory on in the business. So thank you for sharing that.
You bet.
Justin Davis, our buddy JD, is up next. And he says, JR, who was the best backstage agent during your career in the WWE?
Well, that's like saying who was my favorite wrestler. And I hired all these guys. So you got a team or a family of 100 people or so. It's hard to name one over the other. But the best agent probably was Patterson. The way that he could lay out a match, how he developed talent, and how he got talent to trust him on his judgment. The Rock was going to be a big star no matter what, but his road to that promised land was expedited by him taking the teachings of Pat Patterson and putting them to work. Jack Lanza was always a good agent, like Jack Lanza. Jerry Brisco did a great job in so many ways there. But we had several good agents. But I think if you went back and looked at all those shows, most of the stars wanted Patterson involved in some way.
That's right.
Yeah. So Pat was, and that's not taking anything against these other guys. I feel bad about even answering the question.
Sure.
But,
it's more who wasn't the best, but maybe, and I think you did it right. You just mentioned a few of ones that come to your mind that were all really good.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the wrestling agents, the guys who put matches together.
That's right.
I'm not talking about the Arnold Skolins of the world, and Tony Gurria put some matches together here and there for a long time. But Patterson, if you ask the roster, Patterson would win that vote overwhelmingly.
Who were some of the guys too? Because I like to bring it forward sometimes that help put the guys in AEW putting some matches together. Who are some of the key guys that are doing that now?
We have a good crew. Dean Malenko, Jerry Lynn, Billy Gunn, Dustin Rhodes.
Yeah.
Dustin does a terrific job working with the females in AEW, and he's been a real strong presence for them. And slowly but surely, we're building that roster up in numbers and in talent. But Jerry Lynn and Dean Malenko are hard to beat. I know that QT Marshall puts some matches together.
Oh, okay.
And does a nice job. Yeah, he does a good job. He's it's very ubiquitous in AEW in that regard, especially on TV days. But those two I mentioned, like I said, it's a matter of all those guys got great knowledge. It's a matter of who has the ability to connect with the person they're producing.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So, but they all got something. They all have something to add, and are doing a real good job. I probably left somebody out just out of stupidity, but I can't remember.
Those are all guys. When you think of Dean Malenko too and Jerry Lynn, two guys that, my goodness, the rest of them too. But those two guys, technicians. Jerry Lynn was a high flyer. Now you see his style almost evolved through some of the guys in AEW. They're doing Cirque du Soleil stuff that just blows your mind. It's incredible what some of the talent Dante Martin, some of these guys can do in the ring now. So no, all talented agents, and that's good stuff there. Fernando Diaz Jr. is up next, and he said, did you get a chance to see Conrad's commentary on the recent NWA pay-per-view?
I did not. I heard a little about it. I talked about it, kind of chuckled about it. I don't think he got a lot of direction. He kind of was on his own there. And it's hard to do something for the first time when you're all on your own.
Yeah.
Especially live commentary. So, well, we did chat about it. Kind of got a kick out of it.
Yeah.
He understands my misery now from time to time when things you just can't say what you want to say, and you're trying to make, as the old saying goes, you can't shine shit. So I stopped trying.
It's got to be like anything else. Armchair quarterback. It seems so easy when you're sitting on your couch at home, but once you're in that chair and the pressure's on and the big lights are in your face, it's a totally different world.
Different ball game, boy. But I think he had fun as hell doing it.
Good.
I mean, I think he enjoyed the experience. It's just that, for his first voyage, I would have said, well, did you guys do a rehearsal? Did you go do a match? Something you could voice over. Just give everybody's rhythm and timing down. Nope. Something,
yeah.
So, you get some of those promotions are working their ass off. They're understaffed. They're underfunded. They do the best they can. They really do. And we all got to bear with their production issues because that's not an exact science. That takes a skill set too. I think in AEW, we've got the same cameramen we've had since day one, for example.
Right.
So all that's coming together good.
All right. Sean Hennessy is up next, and he said, JR, why did they take the belt off Sting in a match not on TV during his first title reign in WCW? I believe it happened at a non-televised match in New Jersey.
It may have. I don't remember. But if they did that, I would say it was because they're trying to get the point across that anything can happen at a live event to hopefully get the live event attendance up. And that would be my only assumption, because other than that, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
No sense. So if I had to hang my hat on one thing, it'd be that live event awareness. And I remember him saying several times, you need to go to these live events, folks. They're great, exciting, and unpredictable. That kind of shit.
There you go. Joshua is up next, sir, and he says, JR, when working with Vince, what's the do's and the don'ts?
Well, you don't sneeze. You don't cough. You pay attention. You have to be prepared with your notes and everything laid out. He's a good businessman. And, we had so many one-on-one meetings, got hundreds of them. But you got on time, prepared for the meeting, and absolutely, seriously, no sneezing, no coughing. So have Kleenexes with you if you think you're going to need them. So he's got some little picadillos in that respect, but other than that, he's somewhat predictable, actually. So he's got a routine that he's established for himself in his meetings, and I'm not going to change his routine. Nor am I not stupid enough to even try. Why would you try? And why would you think you had the balls or the wherewithal to even try to get the most powerful man in the world and what you do for a living to change his style? That's just a lack of common sense.
Right.
I mean, that's just stupid ass ignorance, quite frankly. So I never tried to change him in that regard.
No coughing, no sneezing. We know he's not a fan of smoking. Would he be kind of a germaphobe? Like if you left his office, you had just coughed in your hand and then you grabbed his door handle on the way out. Would he have a conniption?
I don't know what he'd do.
I mean,
he wouldn't like it.
Yeah.
He wouldn't like it, quite frankly, but
yeah, I work for
who knows what happens when the door shuts, but yeah, I don't know if he's germaphobe. I don't know what that really means and how deep that goes.
Yeah, it goes deep for somebody.
A deep dive.
Yeah.
Conrad's deep dive. A lot
to unpack here.
My God. Look at those cheeks.
Look at those cheeks, Con.
So,
there's the do's and don'ts for Vince.
Yeah, there's a few of them. And they've been well documented by other people that have worked with him.
Brent Barnett is up next. JR, before your podcast, I never knew you called Atlanta Falcons football. Would you consider getting back in the booth on Sundays if an opportunity came up?
Well, I'd like to say egocentrically, yes, hell yeah, I can start Sunday. And my boss owns the team. but we've never had that discussion. They've got a good guy, Frank Frangie, that does their play-by-play. Been doing it for years. He's a radio guy here in Jacksonville, and a good dude. I like his work, but I don't know what I'm 69. I'll be 70 in January. I don't want to burn the candle too vividly at both ends, and that would because that's a full-time gig, man.
Yeah,
we just play one day a week. Yeah, you just walk in and your board's ready and your prep's ready, and you've met with your producers, you met with both coaches, you met with who are the team selects you to talk to as far as personnel, and so there's just no time for it. Would I enjoy setting in, adding a little color here, there, and yon? Of course, because you're watching football and talking about it. How cool is that? We're no football junkie. But I think that train left the station. I at one time, that was really what I was interested in doing. I was on the Atlanta Falcon broadcast team. I think in '92, it was the first year that the Georgia Dome opened. They want to come out with a brand new broadcast team. They used Bill Rosinski, who's a talented broadcaster and a great friend. Does golf, he does football. I want to see him at the OU Iowa State game. He's got that on radio, national radio. So I'll see him and his wife. She's a spotter. And we'll have a little dinner, drink a little bottle of wine or something. But that was my first love. And to be honest with you, my ultimate dream job would have been to do OU football on radio. But, between wrestling always took up a big place in my life. So when you read about yourself, well, he's this, he's that, look, nobody knows when it's time to step away any better than the person that's in question. And so when I feel like I can't hold up my end or carry my share of the water, as my dad would say, then I'll take my leave. But it's been a great journey. I got some interesting offers to do. My 50th year in wrestling business will be in 2024. It generally takes about a year and a half to get everything written. It's a long process. And my writing partner is Paul O'Brien. He's brilliant. He lives in Ireland. And so we have to take special arrangements to communicate. So I'm thinking I'm probably going to try to get something in print, a cool book, waiting on refining the concept and putting a deal together. But Under the Black Hat did so well, as did Slobberknocker. I don't think we're going to have trouble getting a deal done. So, 50 years in the business, 50 years of broadcasting, 50 years in the office, in the most unpredictable, unique world that one could ever imagine, staying 50 years and surviving. Now, all I got to do is, if the good Lord will give me to 2024, and I'll be fine. But there's a lot of good things happening, but that's one of them.
Plug for ad-free shows here. We were able to have Paul O'Brien on our book club as a guest, and he talked about the writing process with you, living in Ireland, communicating back and forth with you as he wrote Slobberknocker. Under the Black Hat, and our guys got to ask him questions about writing the book and stories that moved him, and it was just a really good time with Paul.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
Paul is a brilliant guy. Written screenplays and things like that. So he's a man. I wouldn't want to write a book with anybody else.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing what takes shape there. Hopefully something big between you and Paul. Gennaro Gonzalez is up next, JR. He said, who do you think would be the star and leader of AEW in the next 5 years with all the talent AEW has? And he gives you his picks. His picks are Adam Cole, MJF, and Adam Page. Who do you like, and who do you think? And maybe, just like you did with the agent question, who are a couple guys that you see, man, next 5 years just could be huge, huge stars?
Well, based on aptitude and not eliminating anybody from the process, I could see Adam Cole certainly being one of those guys. Smart kid, got a great mind for the business. He's young, he's healthy. MJF, without a doubt, he's got a terrific wrestling mind. He knows how to be annoying. He's very easy to dislike, which is the greatest trait a wrestling villain can have. So I have great confidence that he's going to be a star for years to come, and a big one. I like Adam Page is certainly he is in the main event at the next pay-per-view, and so he's got another opportunity to take another step up and look at it all, survey all the landscape. I think Jungle Boy Jack Perry is going to be one of our leaders and one of our stars for the future, long-term future. Darby Allin is over somehow, some way. He's a strange enigma, kind of like Jeff Hardy was. So those guys, I like the two fellas on Scorpio and
Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page.
Yeah, Ethan Page. Both those guys got leadership written all over them. So it's hard to say, but here's the good news about this deal. So I don't know if I gave Gennaro, what's his name?
Who asked the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, Gennaro Gonzalez.
Yeah, I didn't give him a good answer, Gennaro, but nonetheless, the good news is we have several guys that could assume that role because of their aptitude for pro wrestling and the fact that they feel so much a part of building this brand from the foundation up. And I can tell you from experience, because I never dreamed it in my mid-60s I would get back and go to work for a startup. And it's been the best professional move I've made.
I was going to say, no regrets, right?
No, hell no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I like Tony Khan's great to work for, and things are going on in our company are exciting. These young guys have very few worked before the crowds that we're drawing, and they don't want to stop. And I talk to them about that all the time. Well, you got as much to say about the audience returning next week on TV as anybody else. So maximize your minutes. And most of them are doing that.
Yeah, I was just thinking about it, and you said talking about being a part of a startup. And I thought about you in Mid-South and UWF days, and you were part of that wild territory, that exciting territory.
Yeah.
Then you moved over to Jim Crockett, the tail end, and into World Championship Wrestling, and part of all that. Then you moved into a big-time position, not only announcer, but WWF, and we're all up in the Attitude Era and all of that. And my goodness, you and Lawler became part of our Monday night soundtrack for so many years.
Yeah, don't forget my stint at Smoky Mountain Wrestling.
Smoky Mountain Wrestling, part of that.
I love that. I had more fun. Crazy Jim Cornette is such a brilliant guy. And, I don't know how many Sprites you drink in a day, but he was hammering it, man. And but I really enjoyed helping him out as best I could. He was down the road a little bit farther than he wanted to be, I think, debt-wise, all that stuff that we all encounter when I got there. But I had a lot of fun. I worked with Bob Cottle. I worked with Les Thatcher. I had fun. And then working the occasional match with Cornette's always a blast. He's really good. Cornette's a natural at that, in that role.
You called matches with Heyman for a little bit there in WWE, then Lawler when he had his absence. Lawler, you transition out of WWE. Oh, by the way, you also showed up in Saudi Arabia.
I did.
Where they were just at. And then now here you are with a startup, AEW, part of another historic wrestling launch and company. I mean, the history that you've been a part of as you talk about all that is just nobody else compares the resume.
It's the right place, right time, Paul, and having a blessed life. I'm obsessed with the wrestling business, and I have been since I was a little kid because I was the only child. We didn't have action figures, but I get a piece of wood and hammer 4 nails in it, get some baling twine, and make my ropes. Then I would use little army men as my wrestlers. And I'd book cards. I do the play-by-play. I had a referee. But I was by myself. Mom and Dad both worked. I was a latchkey kid. And we couldn't afford a babysitter. So, my dad would have my chores I needed to do. By God, they better be done. And, but during the day when I had playtime, so to speak, I would I wasn't shooting a basketball, or I had a rubber ball about a baseball size rubber ball, hard rubber ball, and I throw that against the little room that Mom and Dad built on out of concrete blocks, because I lived in a reformed dairy barn.
Oh.
So it's all concrete floor, all concrete blocks. So I'd use those concrete blocks to throw strikes.
Was Dad a wrestling fan, JR?
No, because guys expose their hands too much. Here's a good example. I remember my dad telling me this. This guy's going to get Irish whip a guy in. You follow him in. You step up on the second rope, and you start hammering down. And it's always 10 shots. But miraculously, when the smoke clears, there's no bruising, there's no blood, there's no missing teeth, there's no nothing. It's just exactly as if it was supposed to be. Nobody got potated. So my dad would say, there's not a human in the world that could let me punch them 10 times without defending themselves. Now, you got to remember, he was 6'3" to about 270. He was strong as a bull. He said, well, you can't take a free shot like that, son. And take 10 of them and be conscious. And these guys are not only conscious, they're in the process of doing something else, and they got no marks on their face. So he tried to get me off wrestling. But it had me hooked.
Yeah.
Wouldn't let go.
And did they call you Jim, or did they have a nickname for you when you were growing up?
Oh, my dad called me Jim. My mom called me Jimmy. And unless she was mad, it was James William. When I heard James William, I knew that shit was on.
Well, if Jimmy would only know what JR would end up being as a little boy playing with them action figures, man.
Yeah.
What a life. Can't wait for 50 years. That sounds like a lot of fun, and I hope it all works out in book-wise. So
Me too, man.
Wade Conrad writes in, he said, ask JR, what is your personal favorite match you've ever called? Not necessarily the best in ring, but just your personal favorite that you called.
Oh, boy, that's hard to say, too. I loved calling with Lawler and Vince the Bret Hart Austin match at WrestleMania 13, one of my favorites, all-time favorites. I liked the Steiners versus Doc and Gordy. Loved that match. That was one of my favorites of all time, because there's no telling how much money those guys could have made if the Japanese business had not interrupted and weak-ass politics in WCW at that time. They really knew what they had. You got these quintessential tag teams that come along once in a lifetime. They beat the shit out of each other and liked it. And they were going to make sure nobody on the card was more physical than them. No other match was going to outshine them. So that was always something special to me. I did 3 Flair Steamboats in '89 that looked like upon now as like a clinic, and they should.
That's amazing.
Yeah, those guys are terrific. So there's been a lot of them featuring a lot of top talent. I was Rock versus Hogan at WrestleMania 18 was really interesting, because we weren't sure who was going to be cheered, who was going to be booed. We weren't sure if Hulk's back was going to hold up, and what Rock would be able to physically get out of Hulk. They did a little Shakespeare. They did crowd psychology. They slowed down. They told a story. Wow, what a concept. And so I really remember that one. That was pretty cool. But there's just a lot of, I've been lucky, man. Really lucky to be in territories and places where I could be in a position to call those matches. And I was also very grateful for the fact that a lot of those guys wanted me to call their matches.
I just had an idea hit me, JR. I think this would be fun, and we'll do this one of these days. I just did with Kurt Angle his top 10 dream opponents that he never faced, and we did a top 10 kind of Dave Letterman style 10-1. I think for you it'd be fun to do a bonus show, the top 10 matches as called by JR. You pick them, and I'll play a couple little snippets, a couple seconds in time of you making the call on the matches, and we'll go through them, but it's your favorite top 10. I think that would be a fun
that'll
show.
take some time, but
we can do it. We can put it together.
All right. Well, let's think about it.
Yeah, we'll think about it, and we'll our back office team, our group, will work on it for you and see what you think.
All right.
All right, good stuff there. Matt Guerra is up next. He says, does JR have any goals left to accomplish in wrestling? And if so, what are they?
You ought to be better this week than I was last week.
There you go. 1 week at a time.
1 week at a time. I want to see this company grow. I want to see our pay-per-view business continue to escalate, and the company gets healthier and healthier financially. I want to see these young kids that are getting their break become millionaires and sane and happy. And because there's a lot of guys that I was lucky enough to sign in WWE that have done that. They've become wealthy. They're Hall of Fame level guys, but they've had great professional lives by and by. There's a few exceptions, obviously. We're all people. But I'd like to see this group here, these young kids. We mentioned earlier, all those guys, all the names we talked about earlier, to realize what it's like to make a difference in their profession and contribute to building a company, all the while earning a great living.
Good stuff. No, that's success right there, defined. Drew Roper is up next. He says, with Austin, Rock, and Cena all going into the movie business post-WWE, Austin being the bigger star of the three in the ring, but maybe hasn't been as big of a star when it comes to movies as the other two. Why do you think this is?
That was Steve's choice. He didn't like doing them. He's a reality show guy. He's a guy that likes to do is get the production done in a few weeks as opposed to a few months. So the structure on a movie set, the hurry up and wait, we're not shooting today, we're going to change this, we're going to do that, was not his cup of tea. And so he didn't have a lot of motivation for it. He tried it, and he had some good opportunities. He had some good shots. He just didn't enjoy it.
All right. Rory Melberg is up next, Jim, and he says, does JR miss the old Big 8 conference and the rivals Oklahoma had?
Oh, absolutely. I'm old enough to know that all change isn't bad, but our league there in the Big 12 is crumbling. The Big 8 was fun. Fans could come and drive. You could drive to Nebraska 3 or 4 hours. Missouri, easy. Oklahoma State was 70 miles away. So, yeah, the trips are good. And the rivalries were so everlasting and long-term. And then Texas got their network. The Big 12 came along, and Texas got their network. Everybody got pissed off. Texas and withdrew. And it's just politics. And now Texas and Oklahoma are leaving the league, going to the SEC, perhaps as early as next year. And I don't know how we're going to do about that. You know, the SEC fandom is very strong-willed. They believe, and they are, the best college football conference in America. And I see with adding Oklahoma and Texas only should strengthen their league all the way around, and therefore make them all more money.
Yeah. All right, good question there, Rory. Shattered is up next, and he says, is the commentary team for AEW given more free reign than they would perhaps in any other companies, more specifically WWE?
Oh, yeah, obviously. Without a doubt. I think you can tell that by listening to us. You know, we're not heavily produced. You know, Tony drops in every now and then, helps us out with some new info, or how he wants something repositioned, something like that. But as far as giving us creative things to say, none at all. It's just us. We sink or swim. So we got a lot more creative freedom, and that's really a blessing. It makes the job a lot more fun.
JR, after you call a show, maybe a Dynamite or a pay-per-view, is there any kind of post-show scrum or any kind of conversation? Hey, guys, none of that type of stuff. Let's get together. Nope. Okay.
Nope. If there's something happens during the show that we didn't handle correctly, or we need to refine or take another look at, the meetings last 5 minutes.
Okay.
But normally we're done. Everybody disperses.
Gotcha.
So, no, when the hay's in the barn's in the barn. All we can do is try to be better next week, and that's always my goal, to be better than I was last week. But no, we don't. It's a very casual place.
The only feedback you get is when you fire up your Twitter machine.
Yeah.
All right. Ari Rosenbaum is up next, and he says, and this is a fun, I love these UWF questions. What do you think would have been the outcome of UWF if there wasn't an oil glut in Oklahoma forcing Cowboy to sell? Could they have made it national and outlast Crockett?
Well, that's a hard question to answer. I always thought that at some point that the two companies should work together, Crockett and Watts, combine their resources, combine their combined television network, share TVS time to build more stars, which didn't set well with the Crockett roster. But it's hard to say. Bill had a great eye for talent, and he had a style that was very physical, and it was unlike, it was more reality based more often than not, in my opinion. I might be wrong too. So if it was simply up to the producing a great show and writing good TV, would have been all right. But still, the funding, the oil thing killed us, and the gas, natural gas. I mean, there was no money. It's amazing too. We had double-digit ratings. Like a 10 rating and a 40 share. But the house shows are the shits. People didn't have the money to bring their families, leave home, park, buy a ticket, a Coke, whatever. Didn't have the money. So even though our TV ratings were ballooning, the product was so popular that it wasn't popular enough to overcome the lack of funds.
And sometimes, which I think is lost too, is the vision for growing a business and doing it at the right pace. That's critical. You could be great at writing wrestling, at booking wrestling, creating exciting TV, but when you're talking about growing a company, doing it the right way, and still being profitable, sometimes that takes a completely different skill set.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Watts didn't have our infrastructure was very lean. So he would have had to add more personnel, and he too was hard to work for. So, but nonetheless, if it just was from the pure point of writing good television, Cowboy would have been all right.
There you go. Andrew Mills is up next. And I got to tell you, this is something that I kind of think about even now where you guys sit. He said, whose idea was it to move the announcer's desk from ringside to the stage area? And this is more back, I guess, in the WWE days. And why was the move implemented were you ever worried about pyro? Sometimes when I see you guys sitting up there now for AEW, and I know that's where you've always sat. Do you ever worry about the pyro or something going wrong up there?
No, we do pyro tests every afternoon while we're sitting there. So we've experienced it. And they're careful about it to take care of that, make sure we don't get burned. I think that the main reason the announcers moved away from ringside was because so many of those shows were being sold internationally, and so they were voiced over by different guys. So by JR and the King not sitting at ringside, for example, it didn't confuse the audience because they're hearing two different voices. That's how I've always believe that it was. And, I know there's exceptions to the rule, but that was kind of why we did it, as way I understand it. The show was being sold everywhere, and sometimes it needed a new VO, especially what if you're Spanish? I can't speak Spanish, unfortunately, or Russian or German or Japanese. So if you hear one voice and you see two other guys, it's confusing. So that's the reason for that.
I know you can't speak Japanese, but man, I'd sure love to hear you try speaking it. That would be entertaining as hell.
I probably need a
Mike,
couple of pops. Give me some nice warm sake.
There you go. Mike Schenk is up next. Who pitched the fake Bret Hart return during HBK's promo in Montreal in 2005? What was the initial reaction, and were there any concerns doing it that it would impact Bret's decision? Would it impact Bret's decision to be inducted into the Hall of Fame? Was this a wink to the fans that Bret return was coming months later?
I don't know. I really don't know about the Winks. I don't know who the booker was there. It was writing creative. Was that Russo?
2005. I don't know that Russo was still there in 05.
Somebody in the creative
came up with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Vince bought it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. But there's so many illustrations of how Brett was managed and utilized. They were not positive all the time. They weren't as positive as he should have been given. He should have been given more credit, more positivity. He was an amazing locker room leader, much like the Undertaker. And sometimes the administration is not aware of the close relationships that a guy has and those individuals' influence on young talent.
Yeah, Russo was long gone. He was going back working with TNA through that time. So not sure who that was, but that would have just been one of the writers.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What we're going to do, arrest them.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, what we're going to do, send a nasty tweet.
Could we tweet him and give him a hard time about it? That'd be fun. Jeremy Priest, executive producer, is up next. He said, if current JR could go back and tell young JR one thing about wrestling, what would it be?
Probably don't trust Jeremy Priest, executive producer. What's the executive producer of?
That's his title.
Oh, he didn't work for Conrad?
He doesn't.
But he's an executive producer.
He's a member of Ad Free Shows. I know that. I know Jeremy.
That's good. We appreciate that, Jeremy.
Zooms before.
Let me see if I can
find him on Twitter and see if it tells us in his bio. Let's see here. Jeremy Priest. Let's see, buddy, because I've often wondered that too. I've seen him ask other questions. Let's get here. Let's see what was his question again. If current JR could go back and tell young JR one thing about wrestling, what would it be? I'm gonna look him up.
Get a financial planner early on, and have a plan, no matter how little you're making, or how insignificant you think your contributions would be.
I found out his title. He's the executive producer on John Arezzi's Matt Memories.
Ah,
there you go.
Okay. Well, I know John for many years.
There you go.
So, well, Jeremy, that's what I would say. Start making a financial plan earlier than I did. It was a difference in night and day. Of course, being an executive officer at WWE when it went private to public didn't hurt my cause either. But I had representation. I had somebody help me monitor this money. And my biggest fear, and I learned this from Cowboy Bill, pay those damn taxes. Uncle Sam does no jobs.
That's right. That's what Ben Franklin said, right? What's for sure in life? Death and taxes. So,
yep.
Guys, go follow at Jeremy_Priest. He's a good guy. He's a low-key big hog, and he's an enhancement talent member on Ad Free Shows. And he helps our buddy, John Arezzi. There you go.
Sure.
Brian Schroeder is up next, and he said, what is Jim Ross's favorite college football game of all time that he was either live to see or watched on TV?
Well, I was on the sideline in 2000 for the Oklahoma-Florida State game when Oklahoma won 13-2 and became the national champions. I don't think I remember seeing a more exciting OU game than this past a few weeks ago down in Dallas at the Cotton Bowl when the Sooners came back and beat Texas. It was just simply a great football game to watch, no matter if you're a OU fool like me or a Texas devotee. So, but I think in person, that national championship is hard to beat.
All right, there you go. National championship game. JDS, he's at Jimmy_Swanger. He said, I was lucky enough to be at a TV taping at my old high school for JR. You just talked about it. Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And Jim Ross was at the commentary table.
Sure, yeah.
Do you have any memories of working with Jim Cornette or with Smoky Mountain Wrestling in general? We just talked about it. This is great.
Yeah, well, all those are drives and to some really unique places. My buddy Dennis Brent, who helped us land all those studio sessions, some old radio shows of WSB that are available here at the Ad Free Network. Dennis would always ride along, keep me company. And we were in a lot of those high school gyms. So you can imagine the dressing facilities are a little different, you know, and Corny being a big fan of kayfabe, that was challenging because there were students in and out, things like that. So it's just, we didn't have catering. You know, we didn't have a big room for interviews. It was just a very low budget, but we had fun. We're doing wrestling and we're having a blast at it. So I look back at those opportunities to call matches there in Smoky Mountain with fondly. I really do. And, you know, I know Corny's stirs up hornet's nests and things like that online and digitally.
Just a little bit.
He's in business. He's trying to get clicks. He's trying to draw people to his site, same as I am.
Yeah. Hey, we got
so
to
why would I
do that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Named Eric Bischoff, and he did plenty of that with this past week. So, Over the Line Sports Podcast, JR. He wants to know, and again, it's like these guys are reading our minds here. Any possibility of book number 3? The first 2 were amazing. There's got to be a bunch more work and personal stories that you need to tell the world.
Yeah. Well, it's a hard thing to do. And I'm not going to settle for a half-assed book. If we start writing it and it's not going well, we just won't do it. But yes, you heard me say earlier,
yep,
there's offers out there now for a 50th anniversary celebration type book. And I'm not sure what direction it's going to take. This is Paul O'Brien's idea. So he's got something in his head he wants to utilize. And, you know, I write these books a lot like I would tell a story. It's got to have a beginning, and you always plan the finish. So I'll always know what the last chapter is going to be about. And you know, then we write it, off it goes. So the answer is yes, but a lot of deals, I's got to be dotted, T's got to be crossed before we begin this next venture.
50 years, the golden voice of wrestling.
Yeah, God.
Here we go. So, yeah, that's exciting. Looking forward to that. Ryan is up next. He says, what's your best Steve Austin personal drinking story?
Well, let's see. There's been a lot of them. Steve and I rode down. He always drove. I remember he was going to try to clean out a little bit, just drink wine. So that's what we did. I didn't even like wine. And we drove from Phoenix to Tucson. Because in those days, you do Raw Monday and, of course, live, then go to next day, tape another day of TV, SmackDown. And so for somebody that didn't like wine, I don't know how far it is from Phoenix to Tucson. It ain't that far. 100 miles maybe. We drank 2 bottles of wine. Yeah, not smart. Drinking and driving is not cool. But, you know, we're bulletproof. He's stone cold. You know, I'm Jim effing Ross, and, you know, crazy delusions of grandeur.
Right.
But yeah, that was a dandy. And we almost got to the point where we're going to start picking out signs and throw those big ass wine bottles at signs, but we didn't do that.
Oh, good.
It's like we were sitting in the back of that goddamn plane ride from hell and acting like an idiot.
Yeah, I don't want to relive that again. That's for sure. If anything from Dark Side of the Ring taught us that, we don't want to see the drive of Stone Cold and Jim F. and Ross. I
was very disappointed in how some of those scenes were portrayed. But those kids got to make a living. They got to create controversy. But I'm not a big fan of having a question asked and way over here, and then it's edited deep in the show to something that fits it fits everything. They manufacture it. And I'm not saying that was all the things they did. And I like those guys. They're 2 creators, hardworking young guys, but I didn't like the show. I thought it was way too negative, and it impacted too many people negatively, I thought.
Yeah. So
it was hard to, you know, I've offended a lot of people by being on that show, which I apologize for.
I talked to Mike Chioda about it, and he said there were times where he would answer something and he was like laughing, but that would be spliced into a part that was a serious topic, and then it made him look kind of like an asshole, and that was never. It was kind of taken out of context of when he was talking about it. So
not good.
Yeah, so I get it. Jeremy is up next, and he says, while rewatching every Raw in order, I came across the first of what for 3 weeks would be called Rikishi's Stinky Faces, before a complete switch to Stink Face instead. What's up with that?
Really?
So the
That's really a question?
That was really a question.
All right.
He put it
You
on.
you got a little Gregory Shane Helms in there, which is good.
You like that?
One of my favorite guys. What's up with that?
The move was called Stinky Faces first, and then they went to Stink Face, and he's really concerned. He really wants JR's opinion. He wants us to take minutes on this show to find out why that was changed.
Stink Face was a better name than Stinky Face.
Stinky Faces, yeah.
Stinky Faces, whatever the hell.
Yeah.
That's pretty sad.
Jeremy, thank you for your contribution this week to the show.
Yeah.
You're trying to make him red ass. He's getting ready to turn into the Hulk.
Turning heel here in a minute.
That's right. His eyes are turning green. James Gruenberg is up next. He said, you talk about all the times you got your ass kicked in Oklahoma. How did it feel that one time in Tulsa on ECW Sci-Fi 2006 to hit Matt Striker with a kendo stick and not getting your ass kicked? Do you remember hitting Matt Striker with a kendo stick?
No, I don't. But if he saw it, it happened. It's on tape somewhere.
Yeah, right.
I guess I did.
Sure, James.
I've said this many times. I never liked being a physical participant in any of those bits because I felt like it took time away from real wrestlers and real athletes that they could use. But the problem was the minute by minutes cheated me out of that my desired goal. I always got good minute by minute ratings because people knew they were going to see something. Either I'm going to, normally it's me getting the shit beat out of me, and sometimes getting color. So I don't remember that. I'm sure it happened. I'm just trying to figure out what the fuck I was doing on Sci-Fi and ECW, but that's another story, I guess.
Yeah, that'll be another bonus show at some point. Ken Brzezinski is up next, and his Twitter handle @promographic. Again, who from UWF or Mid-South, some of these just cracked me up, JR. Who from UWF or Mid-South could fit in today's modern wrestling scene?
A lot of guys. There's a lot of guys. I mean, I'd be hard pressed to say who wouldn't fit in.
Yeah.
Coming out of the Mid-South, we had guys that were really talented workers. And were talented workers in major territories, in other territories for years. So a lot of guys, Murdoch would fit in, Butch Reed would fit in, Magnum TA would fit in. You don't think if the Young Bucks had a chance to work with a young Rock and Roll Express right now, how they would fit in? Come on. So a lot of guys would fit in because we had so many guys who were fundamentally sound and they knew their art. So there's not, I wouldn't want to eliminate anybody. A smart booker knows, like Tony Khan is a smart booker. He can realize what their strengths are and their weaknesses are. We've always heard this talked about Paul Heyman, who's a brilliant guy, no doubt. You hide the weaknesses and you accentuate the positives. If that one Dudley guy could only do a choke slam, then
Big Dick Dudley, yeah,
Big Dick Dudley. Then that's what you'd build a spot to.
Right.
So
get Big Dick up there.
Yeah, everybody could always use that.
Blue Chew, baby.
My God.
Hey, what about the Redeemer Miro versus Dr. Death Steve Williams or Terry Bam Bam Gordy? My goodness, that'd be fun.
I'll say that again.
You think about the Redeemer Miro, right?
Oh, Miro, yeah.
Yeah, picture him against the Dr. Death.
Oh, shit.
Or Terry Gordy.
I would love that.
My goodness.
Yeah, I love Miro. He's found who he is.
Agreed.
And he's, not doing silly shit that they thought might work. We all thought it might work. But what he's transformed to is awesome. Awesome.
His promos, they've been so good lately.
Yeah. He's got a theme.
Yeah.
He's got a beginning, a middle, and an end to every promo. He doesn't get out of his lane. He has his topic. He has his subject matter. Now he's going to present it in some shape, form, or fashion. But he's smart enough to know that, you know, when something works, just refine it. Don't go away from it. And sometimes a booker will get tired when Vince gets tired of things. Sometimes I'm told. So, and things change at the drop of a hat, or in his case, the drop of a pencil.
And
to be more specific, the drop
of
more specific, the drop of an eraser.
Yeah.
Most dangerous weapon in wrestling. I asked Bill Watts at one time. We was going to some trip to some town. Of course, I was driving. That's when I learned to roll joints by steering a car to my knees while I twist one up for him. So I was a jack. I had a lot of skills. You got a lot of skill. You got to have a lot of tools in that toolbox, boy. So if you could roll a joint, drive the car with your knees, steer it with your knees, keep your hands free.
Yeah.
You do your thing. And I asked him, I said, "What? Seriously, Bill? What's the most dangerous weapon? The most serious? You know, is there one hold that guys don't use because it's too dangerous, or is there something?" He said, "No, you got it all wrong, kid. The most dangerous thing in wrestling is the eraser, because with the eraser you can be on the top, and in about 10 seconds you can be in the opener, or you can be gone. Eraser." I've never forgotten that. It's a little crass maybe, but it's true. In those days, it's true.
The pencil's been a theme on this show. It started with Steve Blackman, and here we are working the eraser.
Yeah.
James Plum is up next. He said, "I was at AEW Grand Slam, and the crowd was crazy. Can you compare it to another big show that you had called?"
Which one was that?
He's talking about Grand Slam there at Arthur Ashe Stadium. He just said the crowd was insane.
The Arthur Ashe show. Oh, that was amazing. You know, Raphael Morphy doesn't get enough credit for booking that venue and working that deal out. 20,177. That was the official attendance. Well, let me think.
Anything you can compare it to as far as the atmosphere?
Well, you know, a little bit like Rock and Hogan in Toronto.
Okay.
It was just amazing, the reception those two dudes got in, and Hogan getting cheered was not something we had planned for. Lawler and I just called an audible. It was Vince going to hit it. You know, you're going to have to go the other way or something. You know, we felt it. Two veteran announcers that have been storytellers, been around the pro wrestling business a long time. You should be able to sense that kind of stuff. So I think we obviously made the right call on that one, because the call at the end of the day was good. I just felt bad for those two bastards had to follow them.
Yeah, I mean, the electricity when Omega and Bryan Danielson hit the ring was, you're right, it was comparable to Rock. You haven't seen anything like it since then. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, no, it's special. It was special. That show was special, no doubt, in Arthur Ashe. But we're on par to have some more of those. You know, we're getting. It's funny how the word gets out, because everybody talks, and they do that, including the building managers. So here we come in, we do great grosses at merchandise. We sell a lot of tickets, and then all of a sudden you find other venues saying, "Hey, we'd like you guys to consider playing our venue." And there'll be some of those nice surprises coming up, especially in 2022.
That's great to hear. Up next is Yan Ledoux, and he says, "What is your favorite night in your wrestling career? Do you have one favorite night that you reflect back on in your wrestling career?"
I would say, selfishly, Hall of Fame night in Detroit, 2007, because I have a picture in my mind that never goes away of Jan sitting in the audience and what she was wearing and how proud she was, cried. She was just, it was a great night for her. And so that night is at that what WrestleMania was that? 23, I think 23. So and Austin inducted me, us being first, him throwing away the script they had written for him to introduce me. He found that very offensive, and he did his own introduction. So I think that Paul would be probably my favorite because it's so unique. It's going to happen once. I'm not going to be one of those guys. If you're going to make a bet, you can pretty well bet JR's not going to get that second Hall of Fame ring from WWE.
Yeah.
But I'm very proud of the one I got. Special night.
Yeah, it was WrestleMania 23 back in 2007.
Yeah.
So there you go. All right, JR. Francis Reyes says, what did you buy for Vince and his family for Christmas? And did you have a favorite present that they got for you? Anything stand out?
No. I don't know that we exchanged Christmas gifts, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And that's not a knock or some display of defiance. You know, if you want me to make a defiant story and get all red ass, let me tell you, come on. I got good Christmas bonuses. And that was my favorite form because it's called cash, a check, more specifically. So, but I don't think we did that.
All right.
I know one year for his birthday, Bruce Pritchard and I went in together and bought him a tie, reminiscent back to my Mr. Barnett days. We bought him a tie, and the tie had one design on it. It was a giant pencil with a huge eraser. We just found it at a store. So Bruce and I went together and got him that. And by the way, I've never seen him wear that tie.
Oh.
But at least we showed our sentiments were in the right place.
There you go. Well, MJP wants to know, if you could call your dream match, which two wrestlers would you choose? Still alive or no longer with us?
Well, you got to be one or the other. Alive or no longer with us. Jesus. I always thought it would be fun as hell to call a Danny Hodge versus Kurt Angle match.
Ooh. Yeah.
I always thought it would be cool to call a Brock Lesnar versus Jack Brisco match. I could go fantasy book a lot of good stuff of guys I saw. I'd have loved to have seen, Brody versus Bruce and Brody versus Lesnar have been good. They've been fun. So
there you go.
But it's endless. It could be endless. Because I've been very blessed to be in an era, starting in 74. Think about the talents that were on display from 74 till now. It gives you endless, whatever your only limits are your imagination, which is kind of cool.
Yep, no, absolutely. MJP goes on to say, by the way, I met you in 1998 in St. Louis at the Survivor Series pay-per-view at the hotel.
I remember that.
Yep, and you had a chicken wing hanging out of your mouth. No, I'm just kidding. And he got to talk football with you. It was a very cool experience for him.
Oh, good. I try to be friendly with all the fans and talk about what they bring up because it's normally a important deal for them and me too, but in a different way. But the only thing that restrains that is just time. You got to get to work. You got to get to the airport. You got to whatever. But I enjoy those conversations. I look at it as good market research.
There you go.
Conrad and I did a show the other day. We're talking about, that we're trying to keep RVD as a heel, and the fans loved him. So what do? My theory is real simple. The market research says you go with what the audience wants. What does your consumer base want to buy? And they wanted to buy RVD as a babyface. And No Mercy, for example, we talked about that lately here, that if RVD had won the title, it would have really upset the apple cart. It would have been a whole fresh coat of paint on things. It created a lot of different marriages, different matches, in other words. So, but you got to listen to the audience. That's the market research you want. So I said, well, how do you determine market research? Well, now you do it by minute ratings. Those minute by minutes are the heartbeat. And how do you perform in the much talked about 18 to 49 demographic? The reason that demographic is important, folks, is not because somebody picked a number out of the air or threw a dart against the wall and hit 18 to 49. That's what your stations who are paying you want to build, because they can sell more ads in the 18 to 49-year-old space than any other demographic. That's where the money is. So remember, I said this before. When somebody says it's not about the money, it's usually all about the money. So that's why the 18 to 49 is such a big deal. And the better you do in your network's key demo, the more likely you are to get renewed, raises, bumps, and rights fees, things of that nature. So that's why that's a topical thing. I think some guys just don't do a good job of articulating it. It's that simple. The ad sales department goes out to sell these ads, and they're sold with the 18 to 49 demographic in mind. That's the agencies they contact. If you're selling Snickers, that's an 18 to 49. So you hit Snickers. Maybe we can do a promotion, blah, blah, blah. So that's the bottom line of that thing.
Makes a lot of sense if you think about it, and that's why we hear a lot of that on social media when they're talking about why that demo, that Chris Jericho calls himself the demo guy, but why it matters. Well, that's the target audience for the advertisers. So
it's a network. The network wants that.
Yeah.
And we can provide what they want.
Then
guess what? We stay on air.
That's right. Ken, we have a few more questions, JR, and then we'll close it down. There's so much that came in, and we have plenty for another episode of this. Ken Brzezinski says, JR, being that you've been an executive for so long, when did you stop drinking with the wrestlers, or did you ever stop drinking with them?
Never stopped. I never stopped my lifestyle because I'd been fake and phony. And then if you lose trust because you're trying to portray something that you aren't, the wrestlers are very intuitive. So why should they trust me? So I never changed in that regard. Now, I didn't get sloppy ass drunk when I was, I slipped a little bit of time or two, no doubt. But I always tried to be myself.
Yeah.
And didn't lie to the talent. If you don't lie to people, you don't have to worry about what you said. You got to remember it. It's just, right. You told the truth and go back to it. So that's kind of what I try to live my life by.
One of your female fans, Jessica, has a question, and she says, how has your friendship with the Rhodes brothers and their late father impacted your time at AEW?
Well, I'm really, I'm a major fan, have been forever, of Dusty. Dusty and I are great friends. We argued about a lot of things, especially OU Texas football. He hated Oklahoma. And he loved Texas. But seeing the success that Dustin's having at this stage, he's 50, I think, is heartwarming. I know Dusty would be very, very proud of him. Cody is a lot like Dusty. The acorn doesn't fall from the tree. You'll always see these random tweets where Dusty's doing a soft drink commercial or a pizza commercial. Dusty loved that stuff. Dusty really wanted to have a role on Deadwood. And I think he may have auditioned for something. We talked a lot about that. But we both are big Deadwood fans. So we had that to talk about too. But I think he may have got a look or something on Deadwood. And it may have been the role of the captain. The captain was the heater for one of the heels, and who had a big showdown fight in a thoroughfare with my buddy Earl Brown, who was Dan Doherty. And so I just think he'd be proud of him. and Cody's following his footsteps. Like Cody's has interest in, as we know, that his reality show, and I'm sure he's looking at other things. So I think that would be one reason that the fans sense that he is not prioritized them at the top of his list. I don't know that to be true, but if people were going to make up all kinds of shit anyway,
right?
I don't know if he's going to turn heel or he isn't. Doesn't matter to me. And don't tell me. Just do it. Just do it and let us react as we would naturally. But it's been good. It gives me the opportunity to see Cody's mom and Michelle, or Shelly, as the Dream would say, Shelly. And I've been around his sister Teal.
Yeah, she's a spitfire.
She's a character. Yeah, a lot of personality.
She's on Rhodes to the Top, that new their new reality show, and she's a fun personality.
I think she's a good character on that show.
Yeah.
So it's been fun. They're still in their dad's business, the family business. They're still in different ways. I can tell you this: a lot of our female talent would not be nearly as confident as they are, and a lot of them got a long way to go. Self-admittedly, they would not be where they are if it hadn't been for Dustin. He's got a lot of patience, and he works his ass off to try to help them get better. And Cody's just got so many irons in the fire. And somewhere down the road, the rubber meets the road, and you got to figure out what you're going to be, fish or fowl. But I don't think it's time to make that decision whatsoever.
There you go. Kevin Weekly has a question, and he says, speaking of women's wrestlers, if you had to pick a Mount Rushmore of women's wrestlers, who would be on your Mount Rushmore?
Wow. Well, if I didn't pick Britt Baker on that Mount Rushmore, I would probably not have any peace or solitude for the rest of my life. Yes. And quite frankly, from where she started with us 2 years ago and where she is now, is nothing short of extraordinary, seriously.
It factor.
Yeah. Charlotte. I love Charlotte's game. I love Becky Lynch. I love Thunder Rosa. Her physicality and her spitfireness and her intensity is wonderful. I'm sure there's others.
What about when you think about from like an era gone by?
Alundra Blaze. I always appreciated her work and her toughness and the sacrifices she made and what she's doing today to try to enhance the growth of female wrestling. People don't understand that when you help promote the gender, you're actually helping the entire business.
Right.
You give the fans another reason to tune in or another reason to buy a ticket. And those are good things.
Good.
But there's a lot of female wrestlers I like a lot, but that world has changed. It's not like Moolah versus Donna Crescentello again.
Yeah.
These ladies are probably better athletes.
Yeah.
And they have more sensibilities about their appearance. And I guess you could say that hair extensions and plastic surgery have been very nice to you. So it's just a different era. It's a different world. It's showbiz. But I can tell you this.
Yeah.
I never saw a women's match any better than the match Britt Baker had with Thunder Rosa.
My goodness. The lights out match.
It's awesome.
Unreal.
Yeah. Great stuff. I'm so proud of both those ladies.
Corey Craddock is up next, and he said, what responsibility do you think the creative team has for shaping a talent's career? Do you think a bad gimmick can kill a career, or is it the talent's responsibility to make it work? For example, Red Rooster, fake Razor Ramon and Diesel, etc.
Well, it depends on your negotiating ability. Where you are you leveraged out or in? In other words, Terry Taylor was looking for a job. And Terry Taylor's a very underrated guy, but he didn't have a lot of territory to negotiate on whether you're going to be the Red Rooster or not. So you hope that your talent will allow you to take that character, make it your own, and then subsequently, if all goes well, make it successful. And much like Dustin did with Goldust, that character was so off the wall and so different and unique that he owned it. He made it his, and I thought the Goldust character there was a point in time there was as compelling as anything we did. I'd say the same thing about Dan Spivey being Waylon Mercy. Love that character. Dan Spivey's I wish I'd got Dan before he's all beat up and hurt, stuff like that, because he's a hell of a guy. Still, he could whip probably 99% of the guy's ass in the locker room because he's got a left hand that's sinister for real. Big Dan, the left hand man. And that's what I would say. Those on the female side, but also on this question regarding, you can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit. We all know that. But you're compelled to take something that might not be to your liking or might not be the exact thing that you want to replicate or to perform as. You're obligated to try to make it work. If you go out there every night saying, well, this is never going to work, and people can see the lack of attitude, lack of effort, lack of commitment. So therefore, that's like when Austin was the ringmaster. He hated it. And he bitched and bitched, but still all that while he was getting over. Just because he was a badass and he was anti-establishment and very defiant. And he was it. And, we've talked about the fact that I told stories about him having resistance to turning babyface until I started talking about royalty checks. And then he changed his attitude on that deal. Because the bottom line is you want to make money. You can live out your childhood dream as being a pro wrestling villain, or you can go to the bank more often. I'm going to take that latter option. Let's go to the bank as often as we can. Yeah.
That's right.
Always wins.
Just Scott says, when you got the commentary role on Mid-South Wrestling, do you think you would be calling matches for as long as you have?
Probably not. Realistically, it's kind of an aberration. I think that's the right word. No, I probably didn't. I don't even know that during that era that I thought I would still be in the wrestling business at this stage of my life. I don't need to be in this wrestling business right now.
Right.
Because I did get that financial planner early on. And I had a very smart wife that helped mold our estate. And so I was thinking I'd be doing something else. I was thinking, I always missed not having the opportunity to be a teacher or a coach. I thought that might be really fun and my calling. So I would really want to do. But I never thought, if you'd asked me back then, you think you'll be in the wrestling business when you're 70? I'd look at you like you're crazy. What are you on? Are you high? Are you drunk?
Yeah.
My God. So, no, it's been a really a unique journey. And like I said, if we can put pen to paper, so to speak, and document some of those stops and how the world changed. Can you think about the difference in the society and the economy and how we live our life from the time I started in pro wrestling in 1974 until 2021. And if we do this book, it's not going to be out till 2024 anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm just knock on wood every chance I get that I'm still going to be around for that. I like to be around for my book signings.
Yeah.
So anyhow, this has been an amazing journey.
Amazing life.
Yeah, it really has been. And it shows no matter who the hell you are, a little fat, only child.
Yeah.
From Eastern Oklahoma that rode a school bus to school every day until I worked and saved and got my first car when I was 16. So I had wheels. That was a big deal, man. Man can't date and have a social life without wheels, So that this is the most unlikely journey that you can think about. Just,
Filled with stories.
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting life.
Yeah.
I had 2 divorces, became a widower, and those are not normal. I've been sick. I'm working with this guy that's known as somewhat vain. And here I am, this guy with this Oklahoma accent with Bell's palsy that can't smile. I'm scared to shitless every day. One of the first things I would do when I get up in the morning is run to the mirror to make sure I didn't have it again. So it's been challenging, but you can't take the bat. You can't put your bat down. I got to have my bat in my hand, man, and stay in the game. My dad would kill me if he thought I was going to quit doing something I loved. So hopefully I got a few more years in this gig. And even if I'm not on the air, I know I'll be doing something to help Tony.
There you go.
Yeah, because he's been so good to me.
JR, most people think their life's a success if they have 1 book written about their lives. You're on the cusp of potentially 3, so that should tell you something. Ryan Kratz says, JR, what is your all-time favorite John Wayne movie?
The Quiet Man, followed closely by McClintock. There you go.
Easy one. Listen, I'm looking, and I think we can get through these. Are you still game? Do you want to finish?
Yeah, let's
them
go.
off? Let's rip them. All right, here we go. Let's do rapid fire, and we'll finish this. Joe Miner. In the Attitude Era, anytime WWE ran Providence, Rhode Island, they would sometimes do bar fights at the Friendly Tap, owned by referee Tim White. Was there ever any pushback from him with all the wreckage that would happen, and have you been in contact with Tim White recently?
I have been. As a matter of fact, I owe him a signed photo for his brother, and but Timmy had never said no. And by the way, any damages that were done, he was reimbursed for handsomely. We didn't barely cover the cost. It helped him have a good night and to be able to remodel a little bit on Vince's dime.
So he was inviting you in every time you were in town.
Never had a problem.
Jitter Jive is up next. Most awkward fan interaction, fan experience. On the flip side, do you have a favorite fan memory? Any advice on proper fan etiquette so we can continue to be respectful?
Well, I've been interrupted standing at a urinal more times than I like to remember.
So that's not proper fan etiquette, guys.
Well, no, you don't have me a Sharpie and something to sign when I'm standing at the urinal using it.
Yeah, when he's got his dick in his hand.
Yeah, not going to work. I used to say, I can't talk now. My hands are full. And then look over and say, no, your hands are, get out.
You're full of shit.
I've had guys look underneath the stall.
Oh, come on.
Oh, yeah. Make sure, well, somebody say, hey, JR's in that stall. Oh, no, he's not. So they come pound on the door.
Oh, my God.
I wouldn't say nothing. You wanted to raise your legs up so your feet would disappear. And then all of a sudden, you see they'll change their position and put their hands on the floor. And they're getting ready to look down underneath the door.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's great. It's that absurd. You don't bother somebody when they're in the restroom. Don't ask for anything in the restroom. Not a selfie, not an autograph, not nothing.
Selfie.
Really. And then if someone is eating, leave them alone until the meal's finished. You know that the meal's going to be finished at some point. And if you don't have the patience, or poor you're so busy. I didn't mean to interrupt your dinner. Yeah, you did. Why don't you just say, look, JR, I'm kind of a dumbass. My dad's been telling me that for years.
Yes. God.
And I just wondered while you're peeing, and can you make it out to Jimbo or something? It's like, but don't interrupt somebody's meal. And that includes breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There's no exceptions.
Yeah.
So if you want to get over somebody, if they're sitting at a bar, go off to buy them a drink. Well, that costs you money. Well, I don't know. That's a lot of money. So anyway,
yeah.
Those are some simple rules.
Right.
Yeah.
I hope you were listening, Mark Nelson. Okay, go ahead.
I always make sure that when I get off in elevators, that I'm on there with other people, and they get off of my floor, I let them declare where they're going. I don't need to know. I don't need them to know I'm in room 703, because all of a sudden they can call that room from their room anytime they want, and that gets to be a pain in the ass. So just know the boundaries. Most of us are honored we're being asked to sign our name or take a picture. That's a fact. But let's do it on when it makes sense. Let's do it, Paul, when you're having a cocktail or you're walking through the lobby of the hotel. I learned a long time ago, if you start signing like outside an arena when you're just arriving, they rush over like bees to honey. And everybody wants an autograph or a selfie or to tell you a brief story of their last encounter with you. And so if you sign one, you've obligated yourself. That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
And so I now coming out of the arena, if all the geography is cool, I don't have a problem doing that because we're done. I'm not making anybody wait on me.
Right.
And so it's easier to do. But yeah, just pick your spots, and bottom line, common sense. Just use common sense and see how far it takes you.
Is there something to, hey, Mr. Ross, can I get a picture with you, versus, hey, Jim? Or, I mean, does that matter to you?
Well, hardly anybody calls me Jim anymore. Mr. Ross, I get a lot because of, older. I guess I just discovered I was getting older. Some days I don't feel old, but
you know what I do like? I like when Tony calls you Jim on AEW, because it takes me back to NWA.
Yeah,
love it.
It's always that way, he and I.
Yeah.
But the fans, it's JR they're respectful of my seniority or
sure.
my demo, and and so you get a Mr. Ross every now and then.
Very nice.
And I used to be offended by that a little bit.
Oh.
Well, this is signified that they look at me as old. And finally I woke up and put my ego aside, believe it or not. That was a tall task, hurt my back doing it. God damn it. I was Jerry Lawler. Kenny was Jackie Fargo. He told on me for bloodied his nose. But I was always Jerry Lawler. In Louisville.
Love it.
The Jim Cornette story. Cornette's so brilliant in a lot of ways. But is he crazy? Yeah. But he's a creative. How do you have a friend for 30-something years that you have the utmost respect for their business acumen, their tenure, their dedication? Now, he might be in the wrong party. He may not be on the side of the aisle that I am currently hanging around, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So what do? Do you say, well, if you don't, so what I'm saying then is, if you don't agree with me philosophically, we can't be friends. What?
Yeah.
So anyhow, I don't know where we were.
Life's too short, and people mean too much.
Yeah.
To let stuff like that.
Yeah, and in my stage of life, man, all these guys passing away,
yes.
It's just gut wrenching because I'm on that list too. I'm on that short list of wrestling people in this age group. My time is coming. Mathematically speaking, right now, American males live to be 78. Well, think about that if you're going to be 70 in January. So it fucks with your head.
Oh, I'm sure.
So that's why I'm so grateful that I work for Tony Khan. I'm doing wrestling.
You're enjoying yourself.
And I'm enjoying the hell out of it. I'm meeting a lot of fans. I'm seeing his brand build and grow.
Yeah.
To me, that's just a great accomplishment for our team. And I'm very happy to be a part of that team because they could do the shows without me. I don't think it'd be as good.
you get to do podcasts with Connie and his cheeks every week.
Oh my God, yeah.
I mean, come on now, them cheeks.
I like when Conrad rolls out of bed and he's got bed hair. See, he kind of thinks he's cool when he has bed hair, because that's the kind of the young thing.
I haven't known bed hair in years, buddy.
Well, Connie's a bed hair expert.
He's got a full head of hair, and so he just rolls out and shows up and says hi, JR.
Well, Connie and I record a lot early in the morning.
Okay.
And it's an hour earlier for him because he's in
Central.
Alabama.
Yeah,
Central time. And I'm generally here in Florida. And Oklahoma, same deal.
Gotcha.
It's both central. But I have a lot of fun with Conrad.
All right, we got a few more here. Let's do it. Big Extra says, hey, JR, what are your thoughts on the career of Chris Candido? I always felt he had an amazing potential. He was great in Smoky Mountain and ECW, but was stuck with a stupid gimmick in WWE. We remember the Body Donnas. Was it his size, attitude, or his issues with the Click that held him back?
I had a lot of time for Chris. Chris was kind of earning his wings in Smoky Mountain when I was there. Part of my run there, did some commentary. I always thought he looked like a Dick the Bruiser that was left in the dryer too long.
Yeah,
and that's not a negative.
Right.
Great symmetry. He's thick, strong, but he was a magnificent student of the game. And he sat under Cornette's learning tree a lot. And hell, so did Tammy, Sonny, because they were together at that time. And I can guarantee she learned a lot about the wrestling business and Jim Cornette. If you work for him, you couldn't help but learn things. They may not be your philosophy, but you're going to learn some information that's viable, that you can use if you care to put your ego aside and use it. I think Chris's biggest downfall was his size. And he was what, 5'8", 5'9",
something like that. Yep.
He looked great, physique, big barrel chest, all that stuff. And he could work with anybody, but he was going to be limited as to how far he could go, especially as a single in a major company working main events. Probably wasn't going to happen that often. He needed to be in a tag, I think. But it wasn't his work, Paul. It was not Chris Candido's work. His work was excellent. His size, the detriment, and I don't know how much to believe, not to believe, about his issues with the Click. I don't know how deep those wounds were or whatever, but they were bullying him around. And I felt bad for him because they got real personal, and that's not cool. So that's why I would say his height is the biggest issue.
All right. Phil Malin is up next. He said, who did you sign for WWE that did not work, that now you look back and you're still shocked they just didn't work out?
Oh, my.
Anybody you signed and you thought, man, they're going to be good, and it just, for whatever reason, just didn't seem to hit like you thought it would?
Yeah. Oh, I understand the question. You think I'm a fucking idiot? I got the question.
Not at all. Just trying to buy you some time to think about it.
Well, here's another little philosophical nugget. I don't live that way.
Yeah.
Why would I want to retain a negative experience so I can regurgitate the son of a bitch later on, or when I want to call it up? This doesn't make any sense. Man, I don't know. We had a lot of luck. We had a lot of talents that got over and made money and established a great lifestyle for them and their families. But I can't remember anybody. I'm trying to think. I thought Ahmed Johnson would be a bigger star simply because he was 8x10. And his gift of gab. He was a terrific BSer. And he had, I think you could recall, he had an amazing look.
Yeah. Big boy.
But he had everything he needed physically. The look, the size, height, all jacked up. We were down on a meeting one time. Cowboys wanted to have we had a meeting with Cowboy, Vince, and me, and maybe Bruce. I think Bruce was probably there too. And we got to come up with the name of Tony Norris, who was eventually going to become Ahmed Johnson. Everybody's looking at their paper, yellow legal pads, and tapping their pencils, on the paper. Trying to think of so much. I got it. Let's call him Buck Johnson. What? Buck Johnson. I said something to the effect of, why don't we just call him, I'm Buck, the black man, Johnson. Buck Johnson. And so Vince got somebody creative to give me some names of, Ahmeds and things like that.
Yeah.
And so Ahmed Johnson came out of the Buck Johnson meeting. But I think he probably disappointed a lot of people, because we had high hopes for him. African-American, big gruff voice, distinguishable, looked like $1 million. Was he a great worker? No. Watts liked him because he reminded Bill of JYD, because JYD wasn't a great worker either. He just sold money and merch.
Yeah.
And Ahmed we thought could travel that road, protect him, book him with the right people. That we had a huge untapped African-American talent. And that would have been kind of ahead of his time on a international basis. So Ahmed would probably be on that list. Too bad too. I don't know is he alive?
Ahmed, I believe that he still is. I don't recall hearing him pass.
Well, in any event,
he's still with us. Ahmed
Good.
Johnson.
Good.
So, there we go. All right, up next, we'll keep it moving here. We're just about through this week. Other than Mick Foley, this comes to us from Uncle J89. Other than Mick Foley's WWF title win, what match or matches do you wish you could have called and or been in the building for? So any match or matches?
Well, you got to remember that for many, many years there, I called every main event at every pay-per-view that we had at WWE. There was time was split where Lawler and I would call the Raw matches, and Michael Cole and Taz, for example, would call the SmackDown matches. So I never really missed much. I would have liked to have called Eddie Guerrero versus Brock Lesnar in the Cow Palace. That one always stands out as one that I would like to. That's when
good.
Eddie beat Lesnar for the title, and that would have been cool, because I had great faith in Eddie, and I had struggled with him staying in the company and some of his issues. I took a special interest, and don't regret a bit of it either. So I'd like to call that one, Paul. I'm sure there are others, but I was lucky enough to be on the team during that era that people seem to want to talk about the most.
There you go. You called so many, JR, so many classic matches that, like you said, you were part of it already. So Justin Langlois says, I've been listening to a lot of your old radio broadcasts. We have those over at Ad Free Shows. And with Eric Bischoff getting into radio, he's been doing that a little bit, did it through the summer. Is getting into radio something you would consider again, doing anything on the radio?
All the audio I want to do is right here for Connie, and to work with the guys like you and trying to help build this entity.
There you go.
To where we're all making more money. Conrad's very fair on how we all get taken care of. It's all on productivity. So if you want to draw more, you promote more, have better shows, and embrace that audience that's following you. So I like radio. I like being guests on radio shows. But to have a daily show, how do you do it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even worth spending thought on because it's just physically impossible for me.
Leon says, JR, do you still keep in contact with Baker Mayfield, and do you plan on attending any Browns games this year?
Occasional direct message. During football season, I don't bother my football buddies in football season. They'll get a text or a tweet, something like that. But I don't, and I don't know. I don't have any plans right now to go to Cleveland. But the last time I was there, I had a great time. So Baker's doing good there. He's a little banged up right now, but hopefully he'll get back on his feet and get healthy. He's taking a beating. But I'll tell you this, he's a tough little bastard. And that's no BS. Not just because he's an Oklahoma guy. He's tough. He's got a great moxie, a little swag to him. And that's what and so you either love him or you hate him. I know Colin Cowherd doesn't like him at all. And I believe that's that's kind of a work because it hits a chord when he said, I've used pronouns, when Colin Cowherd calls him out, people rise to the occasion a lot in arms. And I think he's got a good gimmick. Speaking of Colin Cowherd, I've been on his show. It's a great show. He's a smart guy. And I really enjoy talking. I enjoy talking with him off camera as much as I did on the air. He's really a funny guy and kind of guy you want to have a beer with. So I got all the time to work for Colin Cowherd. And even though, here's another, it's like the wrestling fans. I don't agree with all of Colin Cowherd's philosophies, his stances, so forth.
Yeah.
His views. But that doesn't mean I don't like to listen to him. Somebody's going to say in the show, who's your Mount Rushmore of women wrestlers? And now that'll become an issue with somebody. I can't believe he left out Trish Stratus and Lita. And I didn't get to them. But do I love them and are they great stars? Absolutely. They deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And I'm glad I got to sign both of them. But there'll be something made of this bullshit. So you just understand in this day and time, this is how it is. And when you come to the realization that this is how our society lives in 140 characters or whatever, then you have to understand the terms of engagement. And I think at a late age, I've understood this. I don't get pissed off if somebody's opinion doesn't like me. I get anger when somebody says, it looks like you had another stroke. Well, first of all, I've never had one stroke. Where'd you get that, at Wikipedia or something? So that bothers me. And I block them. We done? I'm not going to try to talk you out of it. I'm not going to try to get you to change your mind. I'm not going to engage you in conversation. I'm going to say, fuck you. I'm blocking your ass. And it may not mean anything, but it means I want to listen to your shit no more. So,
right.
There you go.
There you go. They have given us the ability to block and mute. And that's what we do. Alex says, you mentioned once that Memphis didn't work out as a training center for WWE. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, we just didn't have the right personnel. Infrastructure was, it had nothing to do with Jerry Lawler. But I can't remember what the fellow's name was. It was point man of that. And I shouldn't know his name. I apologize for forgetting it. But he just, he wasn't cut out for that role.
Yeah.
And we could consolidate by going to Louisville and OVW, Cornette, Danny Davis, Riff Rogers, all those cats. And Cincinnati, where Les Thatcher was located with his guys, and feel like we were just fine. And we were. I think we tried to grow too fast. If we had Lawler in charge of it, and he was wanting to invest his time in it, then that would have been a different story. But he was busy and doing other things, doing TV every week. You can't expect a guy like that to add more shit to his plate. So it just infrastructure is weak, and that largely was our issue. We didn't put the right people in the right positions to make that little operation work. Simple as that.
Up next, Mike Dolman, and he wants to know, what is Jim's opinion, and what, in your opinion, is the worst chewing out he has had from Vince? I'm sure there's many, but does one stand out as the biggest?
Yeah, I tweeted out the death of Jay Strongbow, and Vince got extremely irate about that because Strongbow and Vince are long-time buddies, very close, and he wanted to be the one to do it. And on my phone rang. I remember where I was. I was in Tampa at the gym there. I was on Dale Mabry, I think. And of course, you don't want my phone. He says, "Is the name VKM?" Oh shit! And man, he gave me no chance to say I'm sorry. He was very hurt, and I felt very badly that I did that. I didn't know it was going to have that kind of an impact. So that was the strongest I ever got. But normally, I mean, I got chewed out more on the air doing live television than I did in almost any other area. But on that one, he was emotional and angry, and I don't blame him. I don't blame him. I made a mistake. It doesn't hurt us, folks, when we make a mistake, to admit it. Understand from it and admit it. Learn from it and move on.
There you go, JR. We are down to the final three, and we have asked every question this week.
Good.
The Rosen Coaster says, which talent over the years had the most complex relationship with Vince, in your estimation?
Well, Warrior had one. Hogan had one. Austin, to a much lesser degree. I'm trying to think who else, but I say Warrior and Hogan had the most prominent relationships of the talent. They're big stars,
right?
There are times where they're the biggest stars in the world, and sometimes Vince had his handful, and generally it's one of the two C's, baby: cash or creative. I've never got involved in an issue with a talent that didn't involve either cash or creative, ever. So if you figure that out early on in your tenure, you should be able to navigate the waters.
JR, Mark Marino says, was it Ray or the company's decision to have him debut for WWE with his mask, despite having lost his mask in WCW and fans knowing what he looked like?
We were interested in Masked Rey Mysterio. And it probably boded well because, Vince didn't pay a lot of attention to what other companies were doing. He probably never watched an episode of Nitro in his life. I could be wrong, but I bet money on it. But, Bruce and I both are high on Ray. But we want that package that we saw from Mexico. The mask, all the great gear, high flying. Vince always envisioned having a character that he could call Mighty Mouse. That's an old cartoon series, kids. And he was the littlest mouse in the group, but he was a badass. Mighty Mouse had these superpowers. You could tell what I did. I told you I was an only child. I watched a lot of cartoons.
Right.
So that's what we wanted. We didn't want an unmasked Ray. So we just acted like it didn't happen. It's not worth going backstory and bringing it forward. And here's what he did. And here's
right.
You're wasting time. Spend that time on getting the Masked Rey Mysterio over.
There you go.
And that's what we did.
Final question for this show. Frank Smith writes in and says, were you involved in the WWE signing of Big E? And if so, what can you tell us about bringing him to WWE?
I can tell you a great story about Big E. I was sitting on a flight I think from Des Moines to somewhere, maybe Chicago, but on WWE business. I sat down in the first class seat beside this dude, and he knew who I was. And, that hat kind of gives you away. And he's a wrestling fan, obviously, but he's big into Iowa athletics, like a big booster, and loved Dan Gable and wrestling and football. He knew my buddy Bob Stoops was an alumnus of Iowa, and he knew him. So we had a nice little conversation. He said, "Man, we got this kid at Iowa. I think you'd love. He's got a star wrestler written all over him." So he told me about him. I can't even pronounce his name. Started with an E. So Big E's not far from the truth. And he said he's about 6 feet, maybe not quite. He's a D tackle. He's the strongest guy on the team. He makes everybody laugh. He's got a massive personality. And so I asked a few questions that I would normally ask. I don't think I was even in that role then. But I got word back to the home office about this kid that we should check into and make inroads. And I think I may have told Jerry Brisco. And so that led to Big E getting noticed and led him on to building his body of work and his career. And now he's one of the top guys in the whole company. Wow. That's so rewarding to see happen. To have some small little piece of helping a guy get to the next spot. So now I'm sure he's making 7 figures plus a year. He's very well respected within his community. His peers love him. He's good for the wrestling business, and his success can only help others of color, without a doubt. And guys like you and I who are pretty Caucasian, even though I'm Cherokee, we don't think about having. We have role models as kids. All the star wrestlers are white. Vince has done a great job of broadening the scope, of using minorities and intergenders and all that stuff. Whatever, I don't get involved in that shit. Either you're a good wrestler or you're not. Or you come to work on time. You're trying to do your job. If you are, then I'm all for you. I don't give 2 shits what your political affiliation is or your sexual persuasion. I don't care. And nobody should care. So that's kind of where I am on that matter.
What a cool story, though, to hear. And to wrap up this Ask Anything with the impact you kind of had, that little piece, like you said, on Big E. And
I got him on the radar.
Yeah.
And the powers that be saw what I saw. This guy had pictures of him. They were buddies. He had pictures of him in his phone. So I got a good look at him. The only thing that he said he might be too short to play D tackle in the NFL, but he's got a great 40 time, means he's athletic. He's got fast feet, strongest guy on the team, which means he's probably bench pressing north of 4. He's just 5'10" or 5'11", something like that. And he came in and blew him away. And he's a good citizen. Every company should have their share of Big E's in it, because he's a good citizen and a good representative of the brand. You need guys like that in your locker room. You need guys that are upbeat and positive and willing to help in your locker room. And so WWE's probably got plenty of them. And so, the Big E's maybe at the top of that list for what I just described. And of course, we got some of our own guys. Chris Jericho's a big leader with us. To me, he's one of the MVPs, if not the MVP. But we all, if you're going to be successful, you got to have somebody, you got to have locker room leadership. And we got a lot of good leaders. I mentioned Jericho because he's one of my favorites. He's 50 years old. I don't know how much more he's got left. He surprises me. I'm in shock about him every time I see him. So but he's also a credit to the wrestling business. So all good though, man.
Well,
so we answered all the questions. We did our job.
Speaking of a credit to the wrestling business, JR, you did a phenomenal job, answered all these questions, every single one of them that came in. You hung in there and gave us over 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Let my family save your family some cash. You don't need perfect credit. You don't need money out of your pocket, but we will save you money. It's not a matter if, it's a matter of how much. SaveWithConrad.com.
Your time this week answering all the questions. This has been absolutely a great time for me to be a part of this, so thank you for allowing me to be.
Oh, you did a great job.
Yeah, listen, the goal here is really we want to talk about ad-free shows. If you're enjoying Grilling JR, and I know you are, you wouldn't be here listening to this show, there's even more JR over at adfreeshows.com. We do bonus episodes. We watch old Mid-South UWF cards together.
Yeah.
We're gonna watch some fun stuff from Halloween Havoc with Hogan and Piper. We do all kinds of fun over there. JR joins Zoom events, does some Q&A questions. He gets to know our top guys and gals by name. We have Top Guy Weekend. Jerry Lawler was there with Jim. Lots of 8x10 picture giveaways and photos and all kinds of stuff. Plus, you get to interact with guys like Eric Bischoff, Jeff Jarrett, Tony Schiavone, Bruce Pritchard, Kurt Angle, and others. Lots of great stuff over at Ad-Free Shows. If you're not a member, you can get these episodes early ad-free on video for as low as $9 a month. Folks, that's just 30 cents an episode, JR.
Yes, that's two. What was that? 2 Starbucks?
Yeah, $2 Starbucks. $9 a month, man. So if you want to check out Rebel's Happy Hour, come on, man. Who wouldn't want to hang out with Rebel every other Sunday, right, Jim?
Schiavone does.
Oh, Schiavone does. Well, we get to too over at Ad-Free Shows.
Okay.
I'm all for it, man. She's entertaining as hell.
She's an Oklahoma girl. I'm all for her.
Oh, she's entertaining, and so check it out. Even your radio shows are over there, Jim. All your old.
I like those.
Yeah,
that's a sleeper.
My goodness.
The radio shows are a sleeper item, and I really believe the radio shows are only an hour.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, there's some 40-something minutes or something. But nonetheless, it's really a good, good opportunity to go back in time. They were not rehearsed. There was no writers. It was just me interviewing people. Some stayed in character, some didn't. That was their prerogative. I traveled behind the road that they were paving. Worked out well.
There you go. It's all over there, adfreeshows.com. Jim, you and Conrad next week are going to be going back to that controversial, infamous Monday Night Raw with Brian Pillman and Steve Austin, where Pillman pulled out the gun on Steve.
Yeah.
You guys are going to have some fun with that. Conrad said that's one of the most requested episodes, and you're going to watch it along together, so that's going to be a lot of fun. And then in November, it's Chris Jericho's 2001, Survivor Series 2001, and also the Raw, where you join Vince McMahon's Kiss My Ass Club.
There you go. Got to show that. That's just very entertaining.
Yeah, man.
We got to show JR to get his face rammed in McMahon's crack, because it's entertaining, folks. God damn it, don't you understand? It's important for society and the wrestling history in general for me to personally document, so Conrad can have a great time.
That's what's going to happen.
Oh, he's got his favorites on his little podcast
schedule. Oh yeah.
JR
puts his face in Vince's ass.
He'll tell Bruce. He says, "Here's what JR said."
Yeah.
Or Jeff Jarrett is his new favorite.
Yes. Oh.
So anyhow, good for them. They all deserve each other, the bastards.
Bastards. I love it. Oh, we got Red Ass right at the very end. This is good. Let's talk about you, JR, because we want to put you out there. They can find you at JR Grilling on Twitter. They can follow you on Instagram at Grilling JR as well. Subscribe to his YouTube channel. Man, that's going to help Jim Ross for sure. Good old JR Grilling JR on YouTube.com. Grilling JR on YouTube.com. Subscribe. It just takes a few seconds, but it means so much to him. Take care of our guy. And GrillingJRshirts.com. Get these great shirts, the Red Ass shirts. My God, there's some shirts.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff. And don't forget to visit my website, jrsbbq.com, because it's always the grilling season in my life. We're proud of our products. They have a large part of my mother and Jan in them, their influence. Chan was involved in developing all those recipes, and everything's in stock. We're smooth sailing. We pride ourselves on getting our orders shipped and taking care of our customers. JRSBBQ.com. JRSBBQ.com. We never close, and we always try to make our customers happy, and we do a good job of that. We're growing a little business simply in memorial to my mother and my late wife. Simple as that. But here's the good news: the stuff is damn good.
Yeah.
So, and for the record, I'm biased.
And you should be. That stuff is good. JRsBBQ.com, where grilling season never ends. Right? It never ends over with grilling season with JR's.
No,
baby.
Never ends. Much
Awesome.
like this show.
Well, listen, we're going to wrap it up. We're putting a bow on it. This was a fantastic episode. JR, thank you. This is Paul Bromwell. That's going to wrap us up this week for Grilling JR.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.